Hey guys, you asked me to go over the rubrics I'll be using to score your short answer questions for the history of the atomic model and nuclear binding energy. I'm going to do that in two separate videos. This one is going to be just on the short answer questions for history of the atomic model, and I'll post a second one on the nuclear binding energy. I want to really skim over the details in this and focus just on how I'll break out the scoring. And if you have questions about any of the details that I mentioned, you can go back and watch any of the previous videos that cover those specifically. So, hope this helps. There are two short answer questions that you might see on history of the atomic model. The first one I want to describe is Thompson and his use of the cathode ray tube experiment to discover the electron and come up with his plum pudding model. If you state the results of the experiment, that the electrons were found to be small and the positive material was found to have a large part of the atom's mass, but provide no reasoning, you're going to score 2. If you provide some reasoning for this by saying that he measured the charge to mass of the negative material and found that it has a very small amount of mass for its charge, and concludes that the positive material must be a large amount of the atom's mass, and then use that to describe the plum pudding model where the negative materials are the small plums and the positive material is the cake, which makes up most of the atom's mass, you're going to be scoring out of 3. If you elaborate on this by describing that he comes up with this small volume for the negative material, large volume for the positive material by making the assumption that these materials are the same density, you're going to score 4. The other short answer question on history of the atomic model that you might see is about Rutherford and his gold foil experiment and how he discovered the nucleus. If you state his hypothesis about what would happen to the alpha particles, presuming that the plum pudding model was true, that most of them would pass through largely unaffected, and then say that this didn't happen, so he changed the plum pudding model to the nuclear model with a small positive nucleus, but don't provide any further rationale, you're going to score 2. If you provide some reasoning for his hypothesis that the positive material had a large volume to charge ratio which would result in weak repulsion of the alpha particles, and that he didn't find this weak repulsion, instead he found that most of them passed through completely unaffected with a small number that were strongly deflected because they had randomly struck a very small nucleus, which resulted in his nuclear model, you're going to score 3. If you go on to clarify that Rutherford found that the charge to mass ratio of the positive material in the plum pudding model was correct, however it was flawed because it assumed an identical density for the positive and negative material, and therefore the positive material is the largest part of the volume, was not correct, you're going to score 4. I hope this helps you prepare for your test and score strongly on these short answer questions. I'll do a second video on the rubric for the nuclear binding energy. Thanks, guys.